realized that seaweed is like a, you could call it a bit of a climate tech material, perhaps. Like
Right.
it very much absorbs incredible amounts of
No
CO2, pesticides, no fertilizers. It deacidifies the ocean. They say it is the most sustainable crop we have on this planet today. Yeah,
Wow.
so I thought, how can I put two and two together? And wouldn't you know it, now I make textiles out of seaweed. So that's my thing right now.
Welcome to the EcoSend Podcast. Stories from marketers, founders, and changemakers leading businesses for a better world.
Hi there. Welcome to another episode of the EcoSend Podcast. I'm your host, James, and today I am joined by Dirk, who is from Karma Beach Club, and I am thrilled to be talking with Dirk today. I might well be wearing something that Dirk has made, and I'm excited to dig into Dirk's entrepreneurial journey and working in the world of sustainability. I also must say, Dirk is in a far more exotic location than myself. But I'm thrilled to have Dirk on the show. Can't wait to dive in. How are you doing today, Dirk? Good to see you.
Hey, great, James. Thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad we made this happen. It wasn't that easy. It took us a few tries because I'm a moving target right now. Traveling around South America and finding that time frame where both of us have a time where I'm stationary and you're not that busy. It wasn't that easy. So I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's a real honor, and I feel a bit guilty interrupting your trip. So we're going to get into that in a sec. And but maybe just before we start diving into that, Dirk, who are you? And what's your background? What have you been up to? And yeah, it would be good to hear more about the man behind the camera here.
Right, sure. So hi, my name is Dirk, and my surname is Eschenbacher. And I saw you didn't pronounce that. You didn't even
I
try,
was
which is
wondering
good.
it. I wasn't sure if I would attempt it
Yeah, yeah.
live.
Yeah, so I'm a proper German, Dirk Eschenbacher, and I'm an ad guy by trade. I left Germany so I'm an app person by trade, and in '95 I got a bit of itchy feet. I got a bit bored of working in Germany and living in Germany, and I left. I moved to Asia. Uh, First, I moved to Thailand and I stopped working in advertising. I opened a travel agency, a dot-com travel agency at that time, an online travel agency in Thailand, and that kind of worked out for a few years. But then the internet, so I didn't get filthy rich during the dot-com boom, and but then the dot-com bust came, and I stopped working in Thailand, and I moved to China and worked in advertising again. I worked for a big advertising agency called Ogilvy, and I ran like a bunch of creative departments around the Asia Pacific region, and I worked on pretty big brands, car brands and mobile phone brands. We did all the Motorola's and that during that time to
Oh
the early
wow.
early 2000s, and
That was when Motorola was a big deal.
yeah, like the Razor phone, the TV
Yeah,
commercials with Beckham, and websites and all that kind of stuff. So that was
amazing.
that was fancy, that was good. But then I got bored again in 2012 of advertising, and I started another travel agency and with a
Oh,
few
nice.
partners in 2012 called Xanadu, and we capitalized on the on the demand of Chinese affluent travelers to stay in luxury and boutique hotels around the world. So we became the leading luxury and boutique travel agency in China. That's
Wow.
from 2012 to now. Actually, we still are. There was a bit of a dent in 2020 with Corona, so
I can
that was a bit of a
imagine.
pity. Yeah, so we
Yeah.
did pretty well. We still do okay, but nothing like it was before. And since we had to kind of scale down and refocus a little bit, I used that opportunity to explore some new ideas and new thoughts and new passions of mine. and I went into the sustainable textile business, I would call it.
As you do.
Um, as you do, yeah. So I had some time at my hands, stuck there in China, and I thought, let's research a little bit what China is doing on the sustainability front. I was quite keen to explore that, and since I'm right at the source, everybody knows it's the factory of the world, but
Yeah.
also what's quite obvious now is that there's a lot of innovation coming out of China, a lot of manufacturing innovation, and some really interesting stuff, right? They're leading in AI. There's so much cutting edge stuff going on. So I was thinking, so what's cutting edge in sustainability when it comes to textile production? Because I thought there must be something, right? So I researched a bit and and I found out a few things. First, I found out that actually most factories there have very stringent carbon emission goals. Most of them
Oh,
are
really? Mm.
have to be carbon zero within this decade, which is quite amazing. Some of
Wow.
them, some factories I work with, they have the mission to be carbon zero by 27 or 28, latest 2030.
Wow.
And those are not
Wow.
small factories; those are huge
Yeah.
factories, right? So I was very surprised to learn that. I visited a bunch of factories. I'm not a factory person. This is all was all new for me. I was very much surprised
Neither
and
neither
stuck.
am I, Dirk. I must admit,
Right,
I've not been to many, especially Chinese factories. I've been to at least
right.
at most zero. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's I mean those are beasts, right? They're gigantic. They have huge output. Those are football fields full of equipment, and they're really well run and very efficient and very compliant, and they're all set out to be carbon zero very soon. So that was
That's
super.
incredible. I guess
Yeah,
because you often I know in casual discussion a lot of people sort of they think of China as being well, very industrial, as you said, the factory of the world, but also often, I think my mind goes back to when they had the Olympics and there was a lot of was it 2008 when they had a lot of pollution problems.
yeah.
And so yeah, to hear that actually they are in some ways, by the sounds of it, sounds of those goals, they're actually almost leading the way for a factory running a factory in a climate conscious way.
Yeah. So also interestingly, the pollution is not everywhere, but in many parts of the country, it's very much cleaned up. And not
Right.
many people
Yeah.
report about that. It's always better to report about
Mm.
the negative aspects, but they did
Yeah.
definitely a pretty good job. But yeah, so I was surprised to see that, and then I thought, what can I do? That's exploring the frontiers of sustainability, and I came across this topic of seaweed, and I'm married to a Chinese to my Chinese wife, and she's from the coastal city of Qingdao, which by totally coincidence was one of the very few German colonies we ever had. And then there's
Right.
even a famous German beer, a German technology used to brew the Qingdao beer. So she's from there, and I realized that Qingdao has a lot of seaweed industry, and I got into this topic of seaweed, and I researched seaweed, and I realized that seaweed is like you could call it a bit of a climate tech material, perhaps. Like it's
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very much absorbs like incredible amounts of CO2, and it grows without needing water because it's in the water, obviously, and
Yeah.
no pesticides, no fertilizers. It deacidifies the ocean. Wherever you grow seaweed, you can also farm oysters and lobsters and crayfish and things like
Oh,
that because it's so
wow.
clear, the water. So it's an amazing crop. In fact, they say it is the most sustainable crop we have on this planet today. And
Wow,
so I
really?
got really
Wow.
interested in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I talked to me 2 years ago. I also wouldn't have thought that I
I
get
mean,
into
most people think
seaweed.
of seaweed as being this annoying thing that sometimes gets on
Yeah,
your feet or your arm when you go in the sea for a little swim. So, yeah,
right.
that's a
Yeah.
whole other way of looking at this.
Yeah, so I thought, how can I put two and two together? And wouldn't you know it? Now I make textiles out of seaweed. So that's my thing right now.
That is quite a journey, Dirk. I think you might
Mm.
win for the most unexpected journey on this podcast so far, because that is
Really?
quite a difference
Thanks.
of
You just
so
gotta keep pushing, man, and just
yeah,
explore new things.
I'm intrigued by what you're going to be doing in 5 years' time.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
so we all know what seaweed looks like when it's in the sea. How on earth does one turn seaweed into something that can actually be worn? And is that even a good idea?
Right. Yeah. So, hey, bom dias. The gardener just walked past here. I had to greet him in Spanish. So,
Of course.
the seaweed that we use, and you may or may not have seen that movie called My Octopus Teacher
Oh,
on
no, I
Netflix,
haven't
which,
yet, but I've
oh
heard
yeah,
many people have recommended it.
it's an amazing
Yeah.
movie, and it's filmed basically entirely in what is called an ocean forest. It's like gigantic kelp plants. Actually, kelp is not a plant; it's a seaweed, it's an algae, and you have to imagine like 20, 30, 40 meter long standing plants
Wow.
under the ocean. That's those brown kelp. Brown kelp is what we use, and we use industrial farmed brown kelp. So you can imagine kilometers after kilometers of kelp farms out in the ocean, and this is being harvested. The kelp then is being dried, and it's being processed into what is called alginate. Alginate is a material that it's used in there's a big global market for alginate. It's a thickening agent. You use it in beer brewing. You use it in food making. You also use it in dental molds. So it's a quite a
Oh, wow.
established material that's been around for many, many years. But we take the alginate and we turn it into fiber, turn it into a seaweed fiber. And that seaweed fiber, it's a staple fiber. It's about 3 centimeters long fiber. That fiber has a bunch of amazing properties. For example, it doesn't burn. You can hold it onto a flame, and it's just flame retardant. It doesn't burn.
Wow.
It also is antibacterial, so it kills microbes and bacteria when they touch the
Huh.
seaweed fiber. And also, seaweed fiber is used in bandages in hospitals. So if you have like an open wound or something, you put that on because it's soothing and it's
Mm.
non-sticky, and it kind of turns into this kind of uh, healing gel, if you will. And also, seaweed
Oh, wow.
alginate is used in facial masks and things like that. So it's a proper big material, and we use that seaweed fiber and we blend it with other organic materials like organic cotton, or we also use organically grown bamboo fiber and blend this
Mm.
together spin it into a yarn, and then we take the yarn and knit it into a fabric, and then the fabric we turn into the t-shirt that you're wearing right now, I can see.
It
So that's
actually
that's really how it
works. It
works.
works.
Great. Yeah, great, great,
It's
great.
still, and this isn't the first time I've worn it too. This is,
Great.
and
I'm
they
glad you
come in colors other than green, right?
they do. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
It's
so that's
very
what we do.
comfortable. I'm not trying to sell your t-shirts here, Dirk, but
Mm,
I was very intrigued when you kindly sent one over when we were talking about
sure.
getting some t-shirts for EcoSend, and I was thinking, what the heck are these gonna feel like? Like, what is it gonna be slimy? Is it like, and
Can
it's
you
a
eat
really
it?
lovely
Yeah.
material. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been through the
yeah.
wash, it's yeah,
Great.
it's really quite incredible, and I'm sure we're gonna. Well, it seems like maybe you could be onto something here. Maybe we're gonna be seeing seaweed clothes popping up a lot more if this is the case. But that whole journey, I mean, how complex is that journey in comparison to other materials? I guess there's lots of ways to make a t-shirt. Does that incur greater um, costs? Are there any downsides to that journey? It sounds like you've put a lot of work and research into figuring this out.
Yeah. So it's not off-the-shelf material. So if you
Yeah.
so right now, what are you wearing is the t-shirt. So, I'm also at the very beginning of this journey and I'm experimenting with it. Right now we've produced only t-shirts and underwear actually because
Mm.
of its antibacterial properties. Right now I'm
Mm.
traveling and I'm wearing my t-shirts every day, and you literally, like, I do wash them every now and then, but you can actually you could go for a week and not wash it, and it's not developing any odors because of its natural antibacterial qualities, right?
That is interesting.
So
I may bear that in mind. When
yeah, yeah. So that's why
sometimes
we
the
only have
schedule gets
the
a bit tight,
yeah, that's
sometimes.
right. That's right. Yeah, yeah. You should set a timer on your app
Yeah.
to remind you of changing your t-shirts. Because it's a good base layer on your skin, so that's great. And also, as you said, it's very soft, like it has this
Mm.
cashmere kind of feel to it, so
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
But to make it, it's not easy. It's not like you can't buy it like a cotton fabric. You have to actually
Yeah.
really create that yarn, and then you need to make the fiber, create the yarn, and then knit the fabric, and then cut and sew the actual garment. And that process, it takes, like, right now it still takes me about 5 months to do this. So if you
Wow.
if you say
Yeah.
tomorrow, yeah, like, you want to have a EcoSend green t-shirt, as you do, uh,
Who would say
and it,
that?
yeah, yeah, I know, and it needs to be in your Pantone color, right? It is a bit of an effort. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't do this under 5 months right now. But
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
beginning, and you just gotta try new things, and we see maybe in the future there's different techniques that make it easier. Because the problem right now, I'll tell you technically, is that you can't dye the fiber. You have to dye the seaweed fiber can't be dyed, so you can only dye the fiber that is blended with, like, the organic cotton, for example.
Ah,
So
I
this whole
see.
process makes it a bit more complex. But
Yeah.
as things work, as innovation happens, and as you work more on
Yeah.
this, and more people perhaps want to have some seaweed clothes, I think if the demand rises, the technology will improve, as you know.
Absolutely. It's also quite refreshing to hear something that's very much the opposite of fast fashion, which
Right, yeah.
5 month waiting
Absolutely.
time is definitely the opposite of that. So,
Yeah.
um, so I guess there's I know I can only imagine, but working in the manufacturing things in China and trying to figure this all out, like, did you have much experience of this beforehand then, Dirk, or you've been picking this all up as you've been going along and figuring out like how the supply chain works in China then? And that sounds like a lot of complexity, a lot of I mean, I think many people listening to this podcast wouldn't even know where to start on
Right,
that
yeah.
journey. So,
Yeah, I didn't know either. I mean, so I would say, like, in this I would call it, now I'm in the apparel business, I reckon, so, or the textile
yeah.
business, and I read obviously quite a bit about this, and watched a few YouTube videos here and there. And most people, I think, that start out, they would probably produce in other countries, like in Portugal or Turkey and things.
Okay.
There's like smaller run factories that can help you out with, like, small batch runs of, like, garments that you want to produce. So that's a bit easier. In China, it's not like that. There's no small factories. Everything is gigantic. Now, I've been living there for a long time, so I know my way around, right? I speak the language, and I have a network over there, and I'm in also in, like, groups and circles of people that are in sustainability and clean energy and all those kind of things. So I learned from that. But then you need to, plus I built a company before in China, a travel company, and I'm in the startup ecosystem over there. We are venture-backed company, the travel company. It's a travel and media company. We got, like, investment from several noteworthy VCs, and also from Tencent, for example. So I
Oh wow.
I know a little bit about the the business environment over there, but still, you just gotta get out there and get your hands dirty. And it also means that you have to meet the factory bosses, and drink one or two little glasses of liquor with them every now and then, right? Especially
What a
if you
chore.
can't, yeah, if you can't order like 1,000 tons, right? It's like
Oh,
you know,
wow.
like you have to play, you have to be a player, right? Yeah, I come in and say, hey guys, like let's try this new. Normally, like a minimum order quantity of something, the MOQs, the famous MOQs are like a ton, I would say, per color.
A
But it's like,
ton per
yeah, it's
color.
impossible.
Wow.
Yeah, per color. Yeah, so that's impossible for
I'm
me.
trying to
So
imagine that, like,
yeah.
and maybe for listeners, like, h- how many, how many t-shirts is a ton of t-shirts?
A ton, yeah, it's a ton of t-shirts, man. A t-shirt is about it's about 250 grams, so you can make your own calculation, man. So it's like it's a bunch. It's a bunch, and it's possible when you have and we I hope we will get there at one point, to sell enough to be able to put in a 1 ton order. But so far in my trial runs anyway, I couldn't do that. So you always have to smooth talk your way in and have a few drinks and tell them that it's all for the betterment of the planet and for let's try some experiments here and then it works, right? And you can do this 2 or 3
Yeah.
times, but after the third round, they're like also getting a bit suspicious, and then you have to put in the bigger numbers then, yeah. So that's it's not easy, right? It's not easy, but it's worth it, I think.
It sounds from what you're saying though, Dirk, that working in China and dealing with some of these factories, there's generally an attitude though of wanting to do the right thing for the planet in general. Would you say that's fair, or would you say there's still a challenge in trying to persuade people to think more sustainably about their production?
Yeah, that's a very good question, James. And me, it's a little bit close to my heart, this whole thing, because, obviously there's a very big rift between China and the West at the moment, and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
which I strongly separate, like the people from the politics, right? So there's
sure.
I also do not deal with any politics, and I'm
Yeah,
also, I also have my own opinions and all that. But the people is a different thing, right? And there's two angles to this. One is the market in China is actually fairly sophisticated, and brands like Veja or some other sustainable brands,
Mm.
they're quite sought after in China, and there is a very much
Really?
a growing
Just
demand for.
for those not aware, Veja is the trainer
Mm,
company, right? That make
right, yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
forward-thinking trainers. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
sustainably minded products, and you could argue that perhaps it's more
Actually,
like
so
a novel.
that's the
Ah,
way.
see, you're like you're caught in the marketing here. No, you're doing the right stuff for the planet. Yeah, and you could argue that many people buy those things for the novelty, because also, again, it's marketing in the end. A lot of it is all about marketing, whether or not you really set out to do the right thing for the planet, or you think
Yeah,
it's cool to
yeah,
have to wear something that says it does the right thing
yeah,
for the planet, right? But anyway, so while the Chinese market is nowhere as sophisticated as the United States, for example, it definitely goes into this direction on the
yeah,
consumer side and on the factory side. Again, behind the factory, there's all people and all, like, from the bosses to the people that I interacted with, like, that helped me with the factory setup, the production setup, and I walked through those factories. Those are all cool and nice people that breathe the
yeah.
same air and eat the same food, right? And uh, and they know about this too, right? And they also know, I mean, they have the government directions to be carbon neutral soon, but they also know that the global demand goes towards that.
Yeah.
They not necessarily say, oh, I need to save the planet by reducing my CO2 emissions right now. That wouldn't come necessarily from the factory worker, but I think the factory boss is very much in alignment with that. And
Yeah.
then in the end, it's a for-profit company, and they turn to where the market demand turns to, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they can see that. So when you go to those big fairs where they the big textile fairs, there's a lot of Chinese manufacturers that have some sort of green products already on the market.
Yeah.
So it's there, right? It's coming.
It's very, very interesting to hear. And as in a lot of these conversations we've had on the podcast, it's like there's often a lot of alignment in doing something better for the planet. Also, there's often drivers at play that also mean more revenue and more profit. There's often a lot of challenges that come with that, but the ideal situation increasingly that businesses find themselves in is that the smarter business option is to think about the planet too, which sounds very reassuring and promising for the future. I would love to chat more about this, Dirk, but I also want to make sure we give time to hear a little bit about your should I call it a road trip, or
Yeah.
what are you
trip.
up to at the moment, Dirk, and where the heck are you again?
Right, yeah. So it's actually not called a road trip. There's a technical term for this, like a geek term. It's called overlanding. And I didn't know
Overlanding.
about this before either, but this is what I'm doing right now. I'm overlanding through Central and South America. So with my family. So we left China in July, and now we are in Ecuador. And so what we
Wow.
did is we bought a Land Cruiser, which is a 4x4 car, and we've kitted it out with a kitchen in the back, like some drawer system in the trunk,
Oh,
and
nice.
some boxes on the roof, and some extra cherry cans for the gas. And then and then we set out to drive to the southern tip of Chile, which is Ushuaia, and that's where we are. We're like halfway down, pretty much. I'm not quite sure if we're already halfway. I don't know. It
I'm
feels
not
like
going to
long.
fact check you on that.
No, it feels long. The days are long. It's a lot of driving, but
Oh
it's
my
good.
goodness.
Yeah. So we're on this adventure, and right now I'm sitting here in Ecuador in the northern. We just crossed from Colombia into Ecuador yesterday, and I'm sitting in. By total coincidence, there is this German guy, Hans is his name, and he has a finca here that provides little cabanas and some flat grass areas for overlanders. And he
Oh
has a
wow.
German restaurant. So for the first time
So you're
in
home
a
from
long
home.
time, yeah, yesterday for the first time in a long time, I actually had a white beer, like sitting there, and ate some German food. Yeah, that was pretty spectacular yesterday. Looking onto the volcanoes. Yeah.
That's incredible. When was the last
Hmm.
time you actually had some German food and beer? I guess it's been a while ago, right?
Yeah. That could have been in China. I don't
Yeah,
know. It could
yeah.
have been. Yeah, it's been a long
Maybe,
time. Yeah, I'm.
yeah. That's amazing. So the trip so far, how long have you been on it, and how long is there still to go? Because I mean, coming from the UK myself, I'm really struggling to get my, for me, a long journey would be going from London to Edinburgh, and
Yeah.
I suspect the distances you are talking about are a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, so it's been a long drive, and so we went down we got the car in Los Angeles. A friend helped us buy that, and then we drove down Mexico for a few weeks, almost a month, and the Baja California. All those things we've never. You always hear about it, but you never actually make it there. And then Mexico was amazing, was really fantastic, and but a lot of driving, especially the very beginning when you just don't know the distances. So you know it's going to be a lot, but you don't know how much it is. And then the Baja California was just quite a lot of driving, and then it was also pretty hot. We got into a hurricane and things like that, and then through Mexico, and then we cut into Guatemala. Then my wife had to fly back to China for family reasons. She basically missed the entire Central America. I was with my daughter. My daughter and me, we went from Guatemala to El Salvador. We cut through Honduras into Nicaragua and then to Costa Rica and Panama. And then you can't go any further after Panama. So we're driving a thing called the Pan American Highway, which goes actually
Right.
all the way from Alaska down to Ushuaia. It's the longest road in the world.
Oh
And
wow.
there's this 100, I think it's 87 kilometers between Panama and Colombia, just after the Panama Canal, right, which maybe you have a visual in your head, the Panama Canal. Just after that, where that Central America meets South America, you can't go through because it's lawless territory, right? It's controlled by some drug gangs, and you have like tarantulas and snakes and crocodiles. So it's a very difficult. So you have to ship the car actually from Panama to Colombia, to Cartagena in Colombia. So we got the car onto this boat. We found somebody to share a container with, and we shipped the car over. And then we just spent a few weeks in Colombia. I never even, it wasn't really on my map at all, Colombia, I have to say. Even on this trip, I thought we'd just quickly go through and then cut into Ecuador. But turns out that Colombia was amazing. Like I have to say, like after Mexico, Nicaragua, and then Colombia, they were all really amazing. And Colombia it's a gem. It's really, really super.
Wow.
Like we really loved Colombia. Yeah. And now we're in Ecuador. Now we're in the Andes Mountains. Now we're at 2,500 meters, and we're gonna go up to 5,000 meters. And we're looking forward to a bit of colder weather now. Yeah, it's good.
That is incredible. I feel like my mind has drifted away from this co-working space I happen to be in London today, Dirk. And
we're working as well. Sorry, we're working as well. My wife's an architect. She joined us again in Colombia.
Oh, great.
We're back we're back united, and she's an architect, and I have my business and a few other side things. So, we try to travel a day and then be stationary either for a day or 2 days, and then see something and work a little bit. We actually bought a Starlink satellite dish from Elon Musk, which is amazing. I have to say, it's really amazing. Like if you ever had one, like it's this really geeky white thing you put up, and it kind of finds its own direction to the nearest satellite, and it moves around a little bit, and then you get a really good 100 megabit connection. So it's great. Yeah.
That's better than a lot of the landline internet we have in the UK, I think. So I won't go down that path. Dirk, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you, and I don't want to hold you back from your adventure any longer. So thank you for joining me on the show. I think anyone listening, they might be on their commute, they might be on a rainy train journey or something, and this will help them get lost in the world with you. So thank you for sharing your story, and we'll also make sure we link to your Instagram, your LinkedIn. You've got a website, and there is the t-shirt store itself, Karma Beach Club. We'll make sure we link to that. If you're willing to wait a little bit for some t-shirts, then that's the place to go. And hopefully we can help Dirk ramp up
stock. That's right.
Oh, they're in stock. Okay.
Hopefully
we can help you ramp up the. Hopefully we can help you ramp up the production of that seaweed.
All right.
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you for joining.
Thanks, James.
Me, and
appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you for listening today. If you've enjoyed the show and you want to tell more people about it, we would love you to give us a rating on whatever podcast player you're using, or if you're watching on YouTube, please do drop a comment and let us know what you thought. So thank you for joining us.